All right, everyone, the red light is on and we're recording. This is Mark back for another episode of the Veteran Semi-Professional. So this is the show for you. If you were trying to figure out what am I going to do once I can put my hands back in my pockets, grow out in my hair, and start wearing these things called quote unquote civilian clothes, this is a show for you. So I bring other veterans and just some cool people onto the show. We talk about lives and careers after the military, all in an effort to help you and your family make an informed decision about what post-military life looks like for you all. We provide tools, tactics, and frameworks, some good resources so you all can feel comfortable about making that transition and know that you're going to be okay. And that's what we're here to do. All right. So, Eric, if you can take a minute and introduce yourself, man, I really appreciate it. I'm super pumped for this conversation today.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it, man. So my name is Eric Brew. I am currently I'm the manager of military engagement for American Corporate Partners, or ACP. I am a 25-year retiree, retired back in 2020. I'm a regular dude, man. I love that. I think I figured out how to put my hands in my pockets. I can use beard products now, so I'm super.
You got a great beard, man. Yeah.
Thank you. I was worried because the hair thing made me nervous. I was like, if I grow a crappy beard, I'm screwed. But no, man, I appreciate it. So yeah, that's me, man.
Awesome. And Eric, what did you do in the military?
So I spent 25 years as a knuckle dragging, barrel chested grunt, brother.
Those are my favorite kind, man. Yeah, we were. So what you all didn't see behind the scenes here was my commo just completely failed me as this thing was going on, and I was joking with Eric. I was like, I wouldn't be a good former infantryman if my comm systems didn't just like catastrophically fail right at the critical moment.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Anyway, we got over it. Quick and adjust. We were back here and good to go. All right, man. So my first question I want to kind of talk about is, what was your personal transition like? I mean, you spent a lot of time in uniform. What was that process like for you? Good, bad, ugly, sideways? What were some bright spots you might want to point out for people, or some speed bumps that maybe you went through you might want to also point out for folks?
Yeah, my transition story is full of moments in time that people can learn from and hopefully not repeat. Right. I started my transition back in early 19, kind of started wrapping my head around the idea of leaving an institutionalized way of thinking in an organization that I have loved for a quarter of a century. People that I've known, family, right? I started wrapping my head around, I put together this incredible plan, right? Here I am, I'm an infantry first sergeant, I'm a father. At that time I had one son serving, now I have two sons serving. I've got kids that have made kids that I'm successful, right? When it came to my view of myself, I was looking at myself and saying, I'm successful. So I've got this thing nailed. Like, I know what to do next. Didn't know where to look. I didn't know who to ask. I didn't know, what questions. And so I started putting together this plan. And what I realized really quickly is that I put my plan in the perfect rear naked choke. I mean, I had that plan locked in. I had the hooks in. Like it was over. But what I didn't do is I didn't leave room for my plan to stretch and grow. I didn't leave room for my plan to ebb and flow, and it failed. The plan failed. It fell out. The bottom fell out from under me, and I was left holding air and wondering what I was going to do next, right? And I will tell you, I just want to highlight this because I think it's super important that we all hear about struggles, right? I think it's important. First of all, I think it's important to share our stories because I think when the stories are hard, I think it takes away some of the power of what happened, right? It kind of sheds a light on things. But I was going through my transition, and I remember the catalyst moment, right? The aha moment, the oh shit moment, if you will, I guess. That moment was sitting on my couch with my laptop in my lap, cup of coffee. I had the Google machine up, and I realized I didn't know what to type. And what that told me was it wasn't that I didn't know the answer. I didn't know the flipping question.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what to ask, man. Here I am with a failed plan, staring down the double barrel of transition after a quarter of a century. I've already made my decision. The retirement packet's in. There's no going back, right? And now I don't even know what to ask. And that actually put me into about a 33, 35-hour tailspin. Where it got real dark. And it got to the point where I was suicidal. I couldn't figure out, and what I guess the nagging thought in my head that what really drove all of that was, how could I not know? There's a lot of like this, that self-doubt, self-talk of like, how in the heck are you not the one that knows? Right? But that ended me on an emergency call with a military one-source counselor who I wish I knew her name. I wish I could find her because I'm confident she saved my life that night. Right? But she highlighted a couple of things for me, and they're things that have sat deep in my heart, and now they're things that carry with me. It's things like, you have to give yourself permission to not know the answer. Like you have to look at yourself, dude. For a long time, me walking into a meeting and saying the words "I don't know" was not popular. Right? Like, you don't get to just say "I don't know." Hey, what's this op look like? What are we doing? I don't know. That's not gonna fly, man.
Yeah.
So now I'm sitting on my transition, and I don't know, and I'm learning that like I have to say it's okay. It's something I've never done. I've never done what I'm about to do. And so that was one of those pinnacle moments for me, that shift in the pendulum, if you will, that brought me to an understanding, first and foremost, that we all struggle. But that a lot of it just has to do with you don't know what you don't know. Right? But I mean, I came out on the other side, so there's a bright spot. Right?
Well, I'll say, man, I'm super glad you're here with us. I'm glad you got that person on the phone, and whoever that counselor is out there, bravo to you for saving a life that day. So thank you. All right, we're all a better world because you're still with us, man. So I'm glad you made that call. Okay, Thanks. And I'll say that I've had those moments of doubt myself too. Okay, where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing right now.
Yep.
I'm not totally sure. I really don't know. Okay. And one of the themes that I always kind of talk about with folks when talking about the transition is just embracing the journey. Okay. It is not you are not going to wake up one day and like, congratulations, you're totally transition veteran and you're just going to go, everything's going to be perfect for you.
Yeah.
You're going to have days. I've talked to people who 20 years ago, they got out of the military and they were having a conversation with someone and it popped up somehow, like some little nuance, some cultural intricacies, something, and they're like, oh man, like I still kind of have it. It's still in my blood a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to be this thing that just completely escapes you. And you're going to have moments where, when you're wearing the uniform, everything is just, I don't say everything, but a lot of stuff is just predetermined. This is your career path. You were a first sergeant. Every first sergeant I knew, you could go to their door and they would have okay, you're an E5 with 4 years in. This is the school you need to go to next. Yep. This is the position you need to have next. This is the rating you need to be getting. Okay, you're an E6. Okay, move a little bit to the right. Here's your school. Here's your evaluation. Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't quite exist in the civilian world as much. Okay, it doesn't. The world is your oyster, and you got to learn how to navigate it. And I think we'll talk a little bit later about like some tools and resources, namely ACP, that can help you through that. But just knowing that like there's not the answer, and if you don't know it, it's okay. It really is.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful, dude. Because like you're right, transition's not an event. It's just not an event. It doesn't happen once. It's a journey. And I'm telling you, like I retired. My official retirement date was June 1st of 2020. I'm not undoing 25 years of institutionalized thinking in a couple of years. It's just not going to happen. Thank God my boss is a military spouse and she understands the life and she stops me from knife-handing people in meetings. You know what I mean? It stops me from, coming across a desk and like I'm blessed to have somebody that can kind of pull the chain on the old first arm once in a while. She's a great commander, right? That's why I like she's kind of my commander. But no, that's huge, man. Just it's not an event. You got to give it room to move.
And you brought up a couple of points earlier that I want to highlight. There's kind of 4 or 5 points that I use to describe like what makes the transition so difficult and kind of scary for some people. Mm-hmm. And the first you described, you'd spent a quarter century in the Army, right? It's a long time. And for most of us, this was the first major thing we did in life.
Yep.
Right. Like this was our first job. This was like our first thing as an adult. Okay. There are people listening to this show who were 19, 20 years old in Afghanistan. Like that's not most people's normal human experience.
Correct.
Right. And it is really hard. Like that is a massive, like defining thing, and it's hard to escape that. Okay. There's also the challenge, and I think you kind of mentioned of the one, like we touched on like the definition of the path and everything. And then there's also the one of the things I know I've grappled with is like the sense of guilt of leaving the fight of, I've still have friends who are on active duty and are doing deployments overseas and everything. And there's that sense of like, man, like you're my dude, but I've got to go do something else. And like, I've got to go, go a different path. And that doesn't mean that like we're not friends anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't care about you. It doesn't mean that I don't care about the mission and service to the country and everything. I've just got to go find a way to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
But that can be a tough thing to grapple with, but it's worth just putting on the table that it might be something you have to grapple with.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I grapple with it today, right now. I just picked up my son 2 days ago from an airport. He just flew in from Korea.
Yeah.
I've got another one that's ramping up to go to Europe. These are my children.
Yeah.
I don't, and just like my soldiers, and I'm in contact with so many of my old dudes, and you think about them going into harm's way or being the potential of being harm's way, and you're like, but I'm not standing there. And how could I not be there next to you? I get it, man. That guilt is real.
Yeah. Yeah. And what the point I was trying to use to ground people is the idea of no matter what, you're going to leave the military.
Yeah.
At some point or another, your time is going to be up.
Yep.
Okay. Your tour of duty will be done. You spend 45 years in and you get out as like, the 4-star sergeant major, the 4-star, whoever it is, like, guess what? You get nothing left. Like you got to go find something else to do. Okay. There's only so much time. And most of us are going to get out and still have a lot of life left ahead of us. You can retire, if you enlisted at 38, or excuse me, at 18, you can retire at 38. Like, guess what? You still got a lot of life, a lot of working life left ahead of you. Okay. So just know that, like, no matter what, it's going to happen, and just like embrace it and let go of that aspect of it, because it's going to happen sooner or later. Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, to go back, so eventually you did take off the uniform and you were in the Army. What was kind of the first move for you? Like, what was the first thing that kind of happened career wise?
Oh, so as I got closer to my terminal, in that failure, right, I ended up stumbling into a local nonprofit because somebody was like, dude, go talk to somebody. Like, here's this nonprofit that helps with transition. And they're local right here outside of Fort Benning. So I stumbled into them as a client. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands, kind of a moment, like, please help. And they do a good job. I mean, they help me out with the resume. They helped me identify that, like, I was moving forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was okay for me to move forward. But ironically, the regional director that was at that organization and I became incredibly good friends. It's kind of like a second dad to me now, really a mentor of mine. But he ended up asking me if I would come on for a CSP internship. And so I was set back on my heels because I'd never really been recruited before. Like, I walked into a recruiting office, but that was about it.
Right.
But he wanted me to be able to share what I do and help my brothers and sisters. And so he offered me the opportunity to do a CSP internship. So I did. Did an internship for a couple of months and then went on terminal. It was very, very quick. And then I was really blessed because as soon as I went on terminal, I'd only done the internship for like, I think, a month and a half. As soon as I went on terminal leave, he handed me an offer letter and I started working for them. But I became, it was more like a counselor role, right? Very hands in the dirt. I wrote a lot of resumes, helped with a lot of interview prep and stuff like that. And we built a really cool program. We took a very small local nonprofit and kind of brought them on a global scale. But they eventually took over as kind of the transition program manager. So I was their transition program manager for a while and just had a good time. And then, that was the first 2 years of my my time outside the service was I immediately jumped into trying to make sure, like I said, people didn't. I just want to make sure that I had that path of life, painted. They knew where to step. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to at least try and do something to make sure people knew where to step. And so I was able to do that with them. And then ACP came knocking, and Leslie Coffey reached out to me and wanted me to come over and be on her team. So again, I got recruited, which was really weird. I'm blessed, man. I will never say I'm not blessed. I have yet to really chase a job. I've been recruited twice coming out. And that's out of a story of ultimate failure to start. So I tell folks all the time, if a dumb knuckle dragging grunt can knock this out, if I can be successful, everyone can. It can be done. It's scary and it's hard, right? We talked about kind of how you think about veterans that are struggling, and I always picture us, right? The grandiose us. Veterans, I feel like we're standing in this open field, right? We got all this lumber and hardwood and screws and nails and tools behind us, and everything's laid out nice and neat, right? Because we got a layout, so it's all nice and neat, right? And we're standing there holding a blueprint, and it's blank. And we don't know if that wood is. We don't know if this stuff is to build a desk or a house. Like, I don't know what I've got it all. I just don't know what to do with it, right? Mark, we're not facing an abilities issue. We're not facing a capabilities deficit. We're not facing an experience problem. We have a communications issue. We don't know what it's supposed to be, and I don't know how to verbalize it, right? But the more we talk to people and the more we interact and the more podcasts we watch and the more people we talk to and the more books we read, we start to see lengths and depths and heights and things start to come together. But it's a process. And I think far too often we want to walk into the S shop and just get the answer right now. Far too often I want to walk in and go, no, just give me the form that says the thing that tells me what I'm going to do next, and let's go so I know what's next. And you just can't do that. You have to take over as the CEO of your own transition. You know what I'm saying? You've got to fight for it. It's yours.
This is one thing I will guarantee that no one is going to do for you. For sure.
Fact.
No one is going to do this for you. And I want to make one point of clarification on just for anyone listening. So you mentioned CSP earlier. That's the Career Skills Program. Excuse me. That's what the Army calls. It's synonymous with the DoD Skill Bridge program. It's a weird branding. Of course, the Army's got to call it something different than everyone else. That's literally all it is. Okay. But it's the same blanket DoD authorization. Just for clarification for anyone listening out there. Okay. And I'd even add I really like that field analogy of you're surrounded by everything and it's perfectly laid out. I'd even say you might want to look up your head and see if you're in the right field. Okay. Because you may see that there's another field, right next door, just through a patch of trees. Maybe there's a house already built there, or you look and say, man, that's actually the field that I want to be in.
Yep.
And I know we're kind of using some super nebulous ideas in terms here. And you're thinking Mark, there's not actually a fucking field for me to look at. So I'm not totally sure what you want me to do right now. But the point being is you have the tools. You absolutely have the tools and the resources. You just have to figure out where you want to build and what you want to build.
Yep.
Everything else, you have the ability to do for sure.
Yeah. Hey, let's beat this field analogy to death. Sometimes you're standing in the field and you don't even believe yourself that you belong in the field.
Right. Yeah.
You get into that imposter syndrome and that I don't really belong.
100%.
I fight that every single day, man. I look at where I'm at today and the rooms that I get to, virtually or physically stand in and the people I'm talking to, and it blows my mind. It blows my mind that some of the caliber of human beings I get to interact with on a daily basis. So we've got to take the time, and I love that. Just take time to look up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, man. That's a great way to look at that.
And I would encourage anyone with that idea of imposter syndrome. A lot of people deal with that. And I think, vets in particular are probably very prone to it. Okay. I would encourage anyone, if you are, at a school, at a job, whatever it may be, and you start feeling that I don't belong here. This doesn't feel right. This isn't, how did I end up here? You ended up there because someone chose to bring you into that room. It could be an admissions committee. It could be a hiring manager. You said someone reached out to you and was like, I want Eric in my room. This is the guy I want in my room. Someone chose to bring you into there. They made an active decision. They evaluated you. Your name wasn't just picked out of a hat. Okay. Right. It really wasn't. And so, yes, it's very easy to get caught up in the, oh my gosh, the comparison and this person's more successful or more outwardly, benefits or whatever. Okay. You were meant to be in that room if you're in that room.
Yep.
100%. Okay. So, eventually you found your way to ACP. Can you do a broad overview of, what exactly ACP is and what you all do?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we are a veteran nonprofit. We're a 501c3 veteran nonprofit. So everything we do is free $99, which is my favorite price, right?
Right.
But what we focus on primarily is mentorship. So mentorship comes with career growth and career exploration. But we focus on mentorship. Our organization partners with just about 120 organizations. Most of them are Fortune 500, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies. And then those companies provide the mentors, which I think is really cool. The mentors that we work with, they're not ACP employees, right? They come from within the walls of great organizations like Nike or Amazon or Campbell's, or there's 100. I think there's 120 of them now or more. But those mentors from our corporate partners, from those corporate organizations, they make up about 80% of our mentors. The other 20% come out of what we call our Citizens Program, and those are DoD employees, small business owners, teachers, education, you name it. It's really those smaller niche fields of expertise. And so, but that makes up our mentors. So the mentors get in the ring. We assign one mentor to one protege. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. And we ask them to engage and stand alongside the protege for a year. So it's a year's worth of free mentorship. You're the only protege that person has for an entire year. So it really is kind of a unique system where they're not going to get 20 and 30 other people to mentor, right? We ask for one meaningful conversation in about an hour a month or more if you want to do more, right? But it's a cool program, man. It's like I said, we focus on mentorship and we focus on helping you navigate what it is your next step in that next great career looks like. But all along the mentorship, you're going to have an ACP point of contact. It's going to hand walk you down the road, kind of check in on you once a month, see how you're doing, see what else we need. But like I said, it's a great program for those of us who need a mentor. And I'll tell you, anyone who's listening who does not need a mentor, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your secret. I want to know how you did that, how you got to where you are in life that you don't need a mentor. Okay, because I sure as heck do. I mean, and it's hard, right? As a senior guy, this is something I thought about the other day. It's hard to think about needing a mentor, especially as a senior guy, as an old retiree, because for so many years I was the mentor.
Right.
So now I've got to step back. I've got to kind of humble myself and realize I might have been the mentor, but I need the assistance now.
Yeah. Well, here I'm going to give my quick spiel and plug for ACP. So when I was getting out of the Army, I used ACP myself. It was a great experience. I had an awesome mentor. The whole thing was great. I strongly encourage everyone to seek this out. Okay. A huge part being, we kind of go back to a little bit of our conversation earlier. Like you probably don't know what you don't know, and that's in large part what the mentor is there to do to help. What I really like about how you all have structured it is that you mentioned 80% of your mentors come from your company partners.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool in the sense that it's not some person off the street necessarily, or there's a certain population that is, right, but the majority of people, it's ACP kind of engages the corporation, and then the corporation and that partnership, it kind of become like the internal mechanism to feed mentors into the program. Okay. So my mentor was a very senior executive at a very large corporation, zero military background or affiliation or anything. He was just like, they came in and pitched this one day. It sounded cool. And I said, sure, I'll sign up and help out a veteran. And it was awesome. He was the man. We had a great conversation. He was super helpful to me. All right. I definitely want to talk about, what you recommend to folks about, choosing the right mentor and finding the right person to begin with.
Yeah. So we call that we call our mentorships, right? They're the 1-to-1 customized mentorship, right? And that's important. Right. That 1-to-1 is what I talked about earlier. That's just the one mentor with the one protege. But the customized mentorship is really important because that's where I want us to sit down and figure out kind of, and I'm going to hit on two things: what you want to do, right? And then who it is you want to talk to. And when I say that, I mean, okay, so what industry do we want to go into, right? We're going to customize our mentorship. We're going to get a mentor in the industry you're excited about. What level do you think your mentor needs to be at, right? If I'm a senior guy and I think I can probably go into a senior manager position, then maybe I want a vice president or senior vice president in an organization or at that level to kind of help mentor me. Because quite frankly, I like my mentors, all of my mentors, I want to be a season or two ahead of me. I don't need peer, right? I don't need a peer telling me how to do things. That's like, I tell people all the time, that's like my teenager asking, her friends for advice on dating. No, I don't want you asking your friends, right? They don't know anything. I don't want to ask another first one. right? I need somebody who's a season or two ahead of me, who's kind of traversed that ground. So it's industry fit. It is what level of position do you want? How many years of experience are you looking for? Like, do you want somebody that's kind of fresh and new, or do you want somebody that's been a little more seasoned? I also say things like, if there's a specific ethnicity or gender that makes you more comfortable to speak to, we want to know all of that, right? The idea is to build the mentor that you are the most comfortable speaking with, the most comfortable being transparent, authentic, genuine, right? Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take you being able to be those things. But then, building that mentorship. And then there's other folks, who really don't know what they want to do when they grow up. Right? I don't have a clue. I don't have an industry yet because I don't even know what I want to do. We have a ton of mentors who really love helping you walk the dog. How do I figure that out? Well, we want to help. We've got mentors that'll say, hey, let's talk about your experience, and let's talk about this, and let's talk about that. And you brought up a great point. Your mentor had never served. Only a third of our mentors have served. 2/3 of our mentors have never served. And I'm with you. I like that. Right? When I went through basic training, I didn't have a bunch of civilians telling me how to become a soldier. Right?
Right.
I had mentors in basic training, and they wore funny hats and they yelled a lot, but they were teaching me how to become a soldier. They were teaching me how to become an infantryman. So I want somebody who's in that life to teach me how to do it. So that's how we customize that mentorship. Now, I will tell you that the more things that you're looking for could take us a little longer to find a mentor, right? Somewhere between a couple of hours and several weeks. Because what's beautiful about ACP is it's a human-driven process. We have no AI. We have no algorithm. There's no swipe left or swipe right. This isn't a dating app. We have human beings. We have a staff of about 70. They're going to dig through thousands of mentors to find just the right person for you. So I find that to be really, really, it's like somebody's trying to figure out how to pick out the perfect Christmas gift for you.
Right. I'll give a little just inside baseball for everyone listening to, and Eric, I when I explained kind of like my process of going through, I'm sure behind the curtain somewhere ACP was like, gosh, this guy is just causing us so much pain. He's a giant wrench in our system or something. But I would encourage you, when you work with ACP or any type of like mentoring service, I denied the first couple of mentors that got sent to me, right? Because they came and I was like, nope, not quite what I'm looking for, and here's why. And honestly, the feedback I got there, it was kind of like a treasure hunt. They were like, okay, got it. Okay. Ooh, but now we can like dial this in a little bit more. And they were excited to then try and find someone to match me with. Okay. So I say that to just say, I think military service can kind of prone you to just taking like the first option that's presented to you sometimes because you're used to that. Okay. This is your assignment. This is where you're going. Here's your orders. See you in 3 years for your next assignment, right? Like we're kind of conditioned to doing that. And so I just say, feel free to say no and say, nope, it's not quite what I'm looking for. I want to look for someone else. And trust me, I mean, I don't trust me. I'm not actually one in the operations process here, but from everything I know about ACP, it's very much the sentiment that I get that like that's what you all want in order to make both parties happy.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you, it's so funny that you said that because when I went through the process, I denied my first two mentors as well. So what I did is and both of the gentlemen, they were both guys, and both gentlemen, they stellar backgrounds, incredible, storied careers.
Right.
They weren't nefarious characters. They weren't, they didn't look like bad dudes. So I told my operations associate, my point of contact, I said, let me think on this. I got to figure out why I'm saying no, right? When I sat back and it took a couple of days and I did a little bit of an internal inventory, right? And I was like, okay, I'm a big why guy, right? I want to know the why. I don't just accept the answer. I want to know the why. So I'm trying to figure out why these guys, I'm looking at their backgrounds, I'm rereading them over and I'm like, this sounds great, but it's not sitting. I'm not feeling it, right? Because I truly believe, and the reason I wanted to feel it is because I believe that time is the most valuable commodity that we possess. We don't know how much we're going to have left in the bank. And if I'm going to invest my time as much as they are investing theirs, and as much as I want to invest my time wisely, I want to be pumped about the person I'm talking about or talking to. And so I did this internal inventory, and what I discovered is it wasn't their background. It wasn't their name. It wasn't a picture that I didn't like. was the fact that they were both dudes. And I'm still a bravado-filled, knuckle-dragging, door-kicking, trigger-pulling grunt. And if I get a no from an employer, or I get told I'm not good enough, and I feel bad, I'm not going to be transparent with another dude. Just not going to tell him. I'm going to hold back a little bit. That's my nature. But I'm a huge mama's boy. My wife is my best friend. My mother-in-law and I are like Thelma and Louise. She's my road dog. And I would murder people over my daughters. So I thought, well, maybe I need a female mentor. Mm-hmm. To this day, Gwen is one of my greatest friends. I trust her. She sits at the head of my board of mentors, right? I've created this board of mentors. I think that's important. I've got all kinds of friends and colleagues that I reach out to when I have to make a decision, and I pull information from and I bounce ideas off of, and we sip on a bourbon and smoke a cigar and talk about things. And then when I've got to make real decisions, like when ACP recruited me and I had to decide, do I want to leave this nice little niche position that I kind of built, and I've got this kind of in this comfort zone, and do I want to go take on something that's bigger and a little bit less hands-on? Do I want to? I had all kinds of conversations with my buddies, but then when it came time for decision making, I called up and each one of my mentors, scheduled a 1-hour phone call with everyone. I ended with Gwen. She was my last call. But I talked to the board. And I said, this is what I think I want to do. These are my decision points. And I let each one of them poke holes and confirm, right? Some of them confirmed some things, and some of them told me I needed to readjust. And then I took what they said, because the board of my board of mentors, their word weighs with me, right? That's a heavy weight. I took it and I said, okay, based on all of this, this is my decision. But that's what my mentor, that's a position she's elevated herself to, right? Just by being someone I can trust. So I'm with you, man. I feel guilty for saying no. I shouldn't be bothering you. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. But I don't want to talk to this person. I turned that into what I believe is going to be a lifelong friendship.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you're still friends with Gwen, and she still consider you. You still consider her a mentor. I have a couple of friends who still talk to their ACP mentor, years after the relationship started. Okay, those relationships can totally exist. So something I definitely want to dig into is, how do you think about cultivating a good mentor-mentee relationship? It can't just, ACP kind of presents it in a structured way in general, right? Mm-hmm. But, they're going to put you two in the same room, but both parties kind of have to come and be ready to get value out of this. So how do I, as the mentee, bring value to the conversation, to the relationship, and then kind of think about cultivating, a long-term relationship with this mentor?
Yeah. I think, it's tough, because when you talk to folks about being mentored, about being a protege, right? A lot of times we get in this mentality that I have to bring something to the table, right? I've got to be prepared. I got to have a list of questions. I'm going to put on my shirt and tie and my suit, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be ready to go. And I think that's unrealistic, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's a fair pressure to put on yourself as a mentee or as a protege. I think you have got to say, okay, I'm going to come with whatever I have. Now, that may be a list of questions, ready to rock and roll. I've read 7 books. I know this is what I need to know, what certificate or what certification. I got it. Some people are like that, but some of us, I'm going to use the word us because I want myself included, walk into a meeting with our mentor and just have to say, I don't know today. I don't know what's next. I know you gave me this thing, and Gwen and I have had this conversation. Gwen, I know you gave me this assignment, and you wanted me to work on it, and I got a third of the way through it. I don't know. Yeah. And I think we have to be able to say that. Yeah. I think a mentor worth their salt is going to go, okay, let's dig through that. Let's figure out why. But that's in what we bring to the table, right? But the cultivating of the relationship, I think that's an equal parties, event, right? I tell people when I talk to people about the program, and I tell them, hey, I want you to be excited about the person you're going to talk to. So, you might read the biography and you're like, oh my God, yes, right now, man, put me on the phone with him tomorrow. I'm stoked. It's great. And then you get on the phone and you're like, yo, that dude is a wet blanket. I can't believe this. That was his. Holy cow, I don't want to talk to him because you're not because that person's a bad person, but because your personalities don't match or whatever. Well, we want to know about that too because we're going to switch out your mentor if you're not satisfied. You know what I mean? Now, I will tell you if you come to the staff and you say, hey, it's month 11 and this mentorship has sucked. Can I have a new mentor? I'm going to tell you I love you. I hope everyone hears me say that. I love you, but that's on you. Okay?
Yeah.
You don't order a steak, eat it down to the gristle, and send it back to the cook and tell him you want him to recook. Okay? If something's not going right, sooner is better than later. Because that's a part of cultivating a relationship too, is being honest with yourself and saying, we're not vibing. This isn't clicking. I don't like the way this feels. I don't feel like they're creating a psychologically safe place, or I don't feel like they're hearing me, or they've got their own agenda. That stuff happens. As much as we vet and we love our mentors, personality matters too. And while somebody who is super dry and super direct might work well for one person, they may not work well for another person. So we want to make sure that we're on top of it, right? Our staff does an incredible job of keeping their thumb on the pulse of every single mentorship, figuring out, hey, okay, what's going on? What can we do? How can we make it better? So I think that's a really, really long diatribe, but I think, Mark, to answer your question, that means the cultivating of a relationship just means I need to put forth the effort, whatever that looks like. I need to be open to the relationship. And I think if you're open to a relationship, and it's like any other thing, right? Relationships are hard for us veterans. I'm telling you, man, one of the conversations my wife and I have had, I think 1,000 times is it's hard for me to build real friendships because I'm tired of people PCSing. I'm tired of friends dying. Then that makes building a friendship and a relationship hard. But you've got to be vulnerable and you've got to be open to it.
I'll touch on one quick point that as well. I think one of the things, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. Okay.
Congratulations.
Huge news. Yeah. For depending on when the show goes out, but at least from the day of recording, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. And my co-best men are guys that I went through IBOLIC with, 10 years ago. Okay. And so many my great friends, it was because we were just shoved into a situation and made to spend a shit ton of time together. All right. And we that just formed bonds. Right.
Yep.
And you don't have that same experience in the non-military setting. You've got to be more deliberate about it. Okay. We could probably talk about friendships and stuff all day here. We don't have that much time. I do want to go back also to the point of, oh my gosh, sorry. My train just totally left the station and went in a different direction, changed tracks. Anyway, what I will say is, man, I'm sorry, Eric, I totally just lost train of thought here for a second. I had something right on the tip of my tongue and it fell off.
Mark, I tell people all the time, you can only get blown up so many times before things stop working. It's acceptable, my friend. You're in a safe space. We're okay.
Oh man. Yeah. Perfect, dude. Cool. I did want to say too, for anyone who was watching the video earlier, if you saw me crush a can and throw it away, there's actually just a LaCroix. It is a Friday afternoon, but I'm not just slamming beers here on the show. Okay.
I'm glad you said that because this is definitely just coffee.
All right. Well, I know you got to run here in a little bit, and so I do want to be respectful of your time and everything. So in a minute, I'm going to pass it back over to you, Eric. Just make any last thoughts, words of wisdom that you want to pass on to the crowd. Okay. Before I do, though, it's a question I always ask my guests, and that's if you can think back, to your extensive career in the Army, what was the best and or worst chow hall you ever went to?
Oh my gosh, best chow hall, hands down, BIOP in Iraq, man. They are the big Air Force chow hall right under the main. We came in there for a refit. We were out at we don't get to stay on those places, right? We're out where they shove the infantry guys, and we came into BIOP for refit. Dude, I got to eat that. Holy cow! Those Air Force chow halls are no joke.
Yeah, man.
Man, that's a great question. I was not expecting that. You got me.
Actually, my first deployment was to Iraq in 2015. So it was probably a very different Iraq than what you were in early career, right? And my battalion was on the BDSC, so we were the Baghdad Diplomatic Security Compound was literally like adjacent to the airport. So technically, it was a State Department compound. And I tell people that the worst thing that happened on the deployment was they stopped serving Ben and Jerry's in the chow hall and we had to go to generic ice cream. But like, I mean, yeah, dude, we had Ben and Jerry's at the chow hall. That was insane. Okay, it was crazy, man. Anyway, Eric, really appreciate your time this afternoon. So much good stuff in here for the audience, and you're working with an absolutely fantastic organization that I strongly encourage anyone to go check out. Okay, ACP is totally on my short list of veteran nonprofits that are absolutely like worth your time and effort. Okay, truly. So anyway, just want to pass back over to you for any parting shots that you want to give out to the crowd.
Yeah, I listen. It's this transition thing. We've said it a couple times, but it's not an event. Please don't put that pressure on yourself. Please step back, take a minute to say I don't know. Give yourself permission to say I don't know, right? Because if you give yourself permission, right? If you say, hey, I'm giving you permission to not know, then you're also giving yourself permission to go find the answers, to kind of do the research. Otherwise, it's just a defeatist attitude, and we're not about that life. So take the time to give yourself permission to not know. Give yourself permission to go find the answers. But we're also not designed to do life alone. We're not designed we're not created to do that. So build a community. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. I'm a huge sucker for a good cup of coffee and a great conversation. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be a part of your community if you need me. If nothing else, you'll know that the old crusty first one's got your back. So please reach out to me. Let's connect. And Mark, man, thanks so much for having me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Great conversation. I really appreciate it. Everyone, really appreciate you listening. Please like, subscribe, and leave a review. I love seeing reviews from the audience. I really do. And then tell a friend also. So I appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. Eric, take care. Enjoy your afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. All right.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
All right. See you, man.